I get those goosebumps every time you come around, yeah. You ease my mind, you make everything feel fine. Worry about those comments, I'm way too numb, yeah. It's way too dumb, yeah. I get those goosebumps every time I need the Heimlich, throw that to the side, yeah. I get those goosebumps every time, yeah. When you're not around, when you throw that to the side, yeah. I get those goosebumps every time, yeah. 713 through the 21, yeah, I'm riding. Why they on me? I'm flying, sipping low-key. I'm sipping low-key and honest, fire rider. I get those goosebumps every time you come around, yeah. You ease my mind, you make everything feel fine. Worry about those comments, I'm way too numb, yeah. It's way too dumb, yeah. I get those goosebumps every time I need the Heimlich, throw that to the side, oh. I get those goosebumps every time.
Sorry, Pete. I pressed the button to start it off. I know you're going to tell us a story, but I pressed the button. I'm too eager to be back.
You were eager beaver. I was literally just about to say, apparently Man United owners are putting the plug on their takeover. Apparently it's not going to happen. Not the weekend, but anyway. How are you doing, everybody? Welcome to, as it says behind Daz, Full Loaded Transfer Show. We are back. Feels like an age since we've been on. It does. Yeah, great to be back. Great to be back with you boys. How's things? How's things in the world of Loaded? Nice.
All good with me. I'm back from my holidays. Chris, there's someone out there in Spain looking for that T-shirt now. That you promised them. You promised them that T-shirt now for into the show. And how do you like that? But I don't know. Great to have a quick little chat with you there the other night. But yeah, missed this. So yeah, eager to get back into it again. It's all starting to kick on now. Oh, time.
It is. Richie, how's things?
Same as. Nothing ever changes in my life. You should know that by now, man. Christ's sake, man. Hardly leave the house, man.
Sometimes, hey, Chris, you know, because we were on with him not long ago. He was like, "I'm better than plodding."
You were ultra happy last time you were on, Rich, I think.
No, we just had a lot of appointments and stuff this week, and there's a lot going on with the missus and stuff like that. So it's just mentally exhausting, put it that way.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully some Newcastle talk and hopefully some movements will change that for sure. And Mr. Horn, how are you doing, fella? Wearing the old away shirt, awaiting the new green one to come through. All good?
Yeah, all good, mate. I thought, I'll represent tonight. Seeing as though we've got special guests on. We've got Jordan and Liam on, who it's great to have them both on together as well. I think, when was the last time we had Jordan and Liam on together? So I felt like tonight was a bit of a special show. So I thought I'll make a bit of an effort. And obviously the last 24 hours, there's been a little bit of news. So I thought, take it a little bit. Yeah,
just a little bit, definitely.
To be fair, Tonali did that last night. He said there was a little bit of news tonight. He went like that, didn't he, on his picture? If you see it online today, he goes, a little bit of news.
I've got it.
You got it.
We'll pop it up. But look, of course, did someone say something?
No.
Anyway, the boys are in the green room, just about to come on. But of course, we have to say a massive hello to everyone in the chat. Everyone was streaming through before we went live. Well over 230 watching already. Great to have you in there. I'm not going to go through names, but there's so many, including our resident spanner, Lisa Mole. Hope you're well. All the regulars in there, and great to see you all. Just make sure.
500 likes. 500 likes.
Hey, we're working in tandem now. We know the score. 500 likes, as that guy said over there, Mr. Dash Shocks. That's a target. Click the like right now. Make sure you support the channel and help the algorithms. And as well as that, get a question in for the boys. There's some questions already popping through. Get a question in and we'll fire it at the boys before they go tonight. And of course, notification bells and subscribe. So close to 6K. Let's get us there, if not tonight, in the days coming up. And look, let's not wait any longer. let's not wait any longer. Thank you all for your support, and let's get the boys in. We have the Newcastle Wild boys, Jordan Cronin and Liam Kennedy. It's a pleasure.
Welcome, lads.
Hi, lads.
How's things,
boys?
Don't think we didn't see you sneak in during the intro, Liam. We saw you just pop in last minute.
Yeah, I am a bit like that last minute. As Jordan often complains about. I say last minute. I'm normally at least 10 minutes late to anything we ever organise. So you've done quite well to get us on at this time.
These YouTubers, they're taking liberties, Pete. These YouTubers, the journalists were fine, but these YouTubers, I don't know about these.
Look, what better place to start? I think it's important to get that out there for loads of people in the chat that may not already be aware, that might just watch us on YouTube. As Jordan Cronin says, they are now on YouTube. First of all, from all of us at Loaded, congratulations, boys, for sorting out your YouTube channel finally. Yourself, Liam, Dom, coming together to form the Geordie Journos. Look, boys, this is your opportunity to plug and let people know and get that support flowing. What was the decision behind it, and how excited and what you got plans for the YouTube channel?
Yeah, Liam, do you want to go?
Yeah, it was just a little idea that we had. I think, as you guys know, that we've been traveling home and away together for the best part of 18 months now, and we kind of just wanted to give people a little bit of insight into kind of what we see. I think there's a lot of people out there doing the kind of thing amazingly well that you guys do, but I think in some ways, our eyes, we get to see certain things that other people don't. I think we want to give a little bit of that this season. I think people would be interested. I'm interested using your platform tonight to see if that's the kind of thing people are interested in. If they're not, I don't mind. It's not really something that we're required to do, but it's just something that it just adds a little extra string to a bow, gives a little bit more exposure to the likes of Dom and Jordan, allows them to sharpen their tools as well. And I think it's a no-brainer for us, really. It doesn't take a massive amount of work. He says that sitting here knowing that Jordan does the majority of the work anyway. I just come along for the quirky comments and often misguided opinion. But it seems to have done us quite well so far. So I'll just keep saying things that come into my head. But yeah, no, it's just one of those things. It's not. I mean, there's so many people doing the kind of stuff that you guys do, the fan stuff, and I just thought, there isn't a massive amount. It isn't a saturated market from a journalist perspective, and I just do think that I know as a fan previously, I would have been interested to see from a different perspective. So yeah, we'll just try and give a little bit of that, and of course, the lads, Dom and Jordan, they know their stuff. They've got their contacts. They're good lads, so it'd be a really good place for them to really, for you to see a little bit more of their character as well, a little bit away from I'm a straight-laced journalist, I must say this, I cannot say that. I think it gives them a little bit of an opportunity to show everybody what's kind of behind the journalistic mask.
And we've seen that in the Newcastle Arms, haven't we, Liam?
Well, we've seen it banging on the window as well out the Aiken side.
Yeah. Well, that wasn't me, by the way. Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. Like, at the end of the day, I do think the boundaries blur slightly. I think there probably was a time and a place in a day and age where there was a certain level or expectation of a journalist. I think now I'm kind of just like you guys, and I think Jordan is, and I think most of the lads that I work with are, and I think in this day and age where we went through COVID and lockdown, and you almost got to be in the bedrooms of everybody that you kind of held on a pedestal back then. I think you gave a little bit of it just gave a little bit of insight to the person behind the byline that you would see in a newspaper. And I think to me, that's a little bit more of an extension of that. I know I'm getting a bit theoretical here, but I do think we have to move on a little bit from there's no criticism, of course, because everybody has to do what they've got to do, but the bedroom type thing, I think it's got a COVID look, so we're going to try and give a little bit a little bit of something different out there. And look, you've got really good content creators out there doing that kind of stuff. I mean, Adam Pearson, like, amazing stuff, to be honest. Like, how that lad's built his channel and built it up from the bottom. And look, he's got his quirks. He's interesting. He's not everybody's cup of tea. But like I'd like to do with you guys, knowing how you guys built your little mini empire here from the bottom up. I respect anybody who puts the grind in and does this kind of thing, because you guys must give up a lot of your time to almost nurture this product over the years. And it is a really good channel and a really good show that you've got going on.
I appreciate that.
Cheers, Liam.
Look, I think all the boys will agree. We appreciate you guys because you've helped us as a channel grow and be the channel that we are, because you give your time to come on and talk to us. And look, this is part-time for us. We've all got lives outside of this, work and family and various other things. So we just enjoy what we do. And the fact that we get to enjoy that with you boys and get to talk to you like we did in the Aiken side and in the other pubs that we went to, it does have that feel, and this is what we've always tried to do. So look, well done to you. Us for sure, and everyone in the chat will be looking forward to watching your content, that's for sure. So yeah, best of luck with all of that. And yeah, I think it was only right to start with that, to be honest, because like I say, you've been part of this channel and a big part of the furniture for as long as we've been going. So we appreciate that, that's for sure. So yeah, if you haven't already, subscribe to, and I'll put it back on again, the Geordie Journos. Dom's not here as well, but Dom is part of that as well, as the boys have said. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. I'm sure one of the boys will put it in the chat if you haven't already at some point. Chris is on it, of course he is. And we'll get to that. But look, let's get down to business. Football. Rangers last night, pre-season friendly, up at Ibrox. I believe both of you were there. Is that right? Were you both at the game?
We're not. I've got to say, Pete, have you not seen the snatch photographs outside of from the last episode of Geordie Journos?
Well, I knew that Jordan was there because I saw all the pictures, and we managed to get a snapshot of a couple of them. But look, the boys put in what I thought was a really good performance, particularly in the first half. There were some individual performances that we'll come to in a second, but great to see the boys go to a place with a lot of rich history and a cracking atmosphere, it sounded like, from watching it, and put in a good performance. But from you boys that were there, you know, Jordan, I'll come to you with this. What did you make of Newcastle's performance yesterday?
Yeah, I thought it was controlled from start to finish, bar that lapse in concentration when Caldalo and Bruno got themselves a bit of a mix-up. I thought first half, Rangers were really poor. But I think that's probably more reflective of the fact that actually was their first pre-season game. They gradually improved after the break, but I thought Newcastle, with a better team comfortably, obviously looked or had a huge improvement on Saturday because it welcomed back all the international stars, obviously apart from Joe Linton, who was trying to get a visa for America. But there were so many good performances all over the pitch. The obvious one being Sandro Tonali, who, as Liam said, really showed a bit of everything that we expect from him and what Eddie Howe expects from him. A real complete 45 minutes in terms of his passing range, his tenacity, just finding little pockets of space as well, trying to build that understanding with Longstaff and Miguel Almiron and Kieran Trippier down the right as well. So I thought he was really, really impressive. It's only pre-season, so it's hard to judge yet, but I thought it was a really, really positive first 45. And then beyond that as well, I thought Lewis Miley again, a player that I've waxed lyrical about this summer because look, he came on against Chelsea back in the last season and it didn't look out of place. He's played 2 for that pre-season friend. He's with the first team and again, doesn't look out of place at all. I think he looks a player that's ready-made for Premier League football. Obviously, still got a long way to go in his development, but you look at his stature, the way he handles himself on the pitch, really, really impressed with him. Elliot Anderson again looks like he's going to have another good pre-season after having a really good pre-season 12 months ago. Could be a big season for him in terms of his versatility and how he can cover on the as a left forward and centre mid as well. So really impressed with him. So I thought as a second pre-season friendly, I thought there was a lot to be positive about. Admittedly, Gateshead and Rangers isn't too much of a test. The Newcastle's pre-season starts now, and it starts against I think it's Aston Villa, the first game in America. The America games are a huge test. Obviously, Chelsea and Brighton to play as well. So it was a good positive start with wins. It's always nice to win in pre-season, but they've got some really big tests to come up now. And I say in 3 games' time, once they get the America friendlies out of the way, they've got the Select Cup as well. So they've got another 2 hard friendlies in, and then straight into the league season. So there's a long way to go, but I certainly thought it was a positive start. Yeah,
definitely. Boys, I'll come to you, like Loaded Boys, to get your opinion on it. Daz, I'll start with you. From your perspective, what did you make of the second half performance from the boys? Obviously, there's a lot of people are saying there was a bit of a drop down in terms of the quality of performance. Did that for you show that we need to make additions to the squad, because it looked a little bit light in comparison to the first half performance that Jordan talked about?
Yes, we know we need to strengthen. You can see that in the Gateshead game as well, that the strength of that, because an awful lot of the international players had extra time, so they didn't get to play. And as Jordan touched on, Elliot Anderson played well in both games actually, and I was impressed with Alex Murphy when he came on as well. He got on some good tackles. He doesn't look out of place when he's playing. Anytime I've seen him, and we need that strength and depth. Pete, and there's a few things happening in the background to allow that to happen. I'm sure we'll get into that though in a few minutes.
I'm sure we will. A few people calling, or not calling, but a few people on social media, and it is a small section, concerned about Bruno's performance. Richie, were you concerned by his performance, or just a one-off?
Well, you'd like to think it's a one-off, and to be fair, I think anyone would rather get all the mistakes out of the way in pre-season. I don't think you're going to see that from Bruno when the season kicks off. You've got to remember he's just come back from a break. He's just got married, hadn't he? Obviously, his honeymoon, all that sort of stuff. He's just get back at getting the wheels going again, sort of thing. And to be fair, you look at the issue last night for the goal. Obviously, got dispossessed. To be fair, I don't really think it's a ball that he should have been asking for anyway. I think because obviously there was no other options on. And I know obviously we want to build from the back, but I think sometimes you've still got to try and go long occasionally. And I think because there was no other option, I got the feeling he felt as though he had to try and make himself available. And he perhaps just didn't realise how close the lad behind him was and got caught out. But as I said, get those mistakes out of the way in pre-season, and then that's it. He'll know that he's got out of the way. He'll have to be on his toes going forward for the rest of pre-season and the season, which we know he will be. And to be fair, he'll have better partners around him as well when the season starts and as the pre-season develops as well. You go off the way that Tonali played last night. I thought he was fantastic first half. Just the movement, the slick passing. The disguised passes as well. The one where he tried to put the ball through for, I think it was Wilson. Towards the end of the first half, it was a fantastic ball. That's just the instinct of Wilson. You can see little bits of, understanding already developing in the space of 5 days. So if you can imagine Bruno and Tonali playing together, it just looks great.
Yeah, it was seamless, absolutely seamless. Ice, cold as ice is what I said on social media last night. But Chris, one man that you kept an eye on very, very closely that played in the second half, Anthony Gordon. Lots of people are very, very excited about his performance and what he could potentially bring. I know you're a big fan. Having watched him in the 21s, were you impressed?
Yeah, I was very impressed. Yeah, he had. I don't know if you boys agree with this, but to me, he had a bit of a swagger. I think that under-21 tournament has done him the world of good. Seemingly, I know I'm basing this off a 45-minute performance against Rangers in a testimonial. But when he come onto the pitch, I think, the warmth and support that he had from the fans, and he talked about it as well in the post-match, that he's he's been supported to the hilt by the fans since he's joined. And, you know, despite a few people getting on his back at the back end of last season, hopefully you didn't see too much of that. You didn't see that yesterday. Like, you know, the whole fan base appeared to be right behind him. And I thought that he came on and the cameo that he put in, and the shift he put in was really promising. I think there was a moment, wasn't there, when he picked it up on the left-hand side and he, you know, did a little shimmy, took it round the defender, which I believe was Tavernier. And, you know, was unlucky really with the cross into the box. But yeah, I thought it was a good cameo from him. And I'm looking forward to seeing him in the next game because, you know, hopefully he can build on his confidence and try and make that left wing position his own. The only thing I thought was interesting was when he came on in the second half, I thought Eddie Howe might have tried him on the right. So it was interesting to see him come on the left.
Yeah. Yeah, it is an interesting situation. And obviously, with the left-hand side, I'm sure we'll talk about that in a second, but he could well be a big part of that conversation next season. That's for sure. But look, good performance, lots more to come. I think, Jordan, you said it quite rightly, that this is now the beginning. Obviously, we're going to the States, the summer series. The boys are off on their way, as we saw today. You mentioned Elliot Anderson earlier. I can't remember who mentioned it, but someone mentioned Elliot Anderson. He's had a good start to pre-season, but Liam, I'll come to you with this one. Do you think he needs a loan next season where he's playing regular football week in, week out? Or do you think he's going to get those opportunities sort of what he had at the back end of the season with Newcastle this season? What do you think?
Yeah, I don't see a way out of the club for him at all. No, I think he's going to be needed. I think you'll probably see a lot more from Elliot Anderson this season. He's one of the biggest compliments I can pay him now is he looks every part a bit of this squad. He had to prove himself last summer. Eddie Howe's using him in a position that he knows isn't his strongest position, but is having to do so out of circumstance. I expect he will start the season on the bench, but I think we'll see quite a bit of him when needed. Newcastle need a squad next season to fight on, at any one given time, at least 2 to 3 fronts. That's probably going to consist of having a Premier League team, well, a Champions League team, plus a team that they play in the Premier League, depending on the size of the task they've got in the Champions League that week will depend on the strength of the Premier League team compared to the Champions League team. But I think it's imperative that Eddie Howe doesn't lose sight of the fact that they need to make sure that they're in and around that top 5 mix again next season, which is going to be easier said than done, given the strengthening that the likes of Liverpool are making. I'm not going to sit here and write Chelsea off. I know a lot of people probably will, but I'm not going to do that because I think they're really an unknown quantity. And have Newcastle United not just proven to everybody in the Premier League that unknown quantities can suddenly come out of nowhere and do big things at the top end of the division. Like I said, Aston Villa, I think they've made some really shrewd additions and they've got a fantastic manager who, if there is a manager out there who knows how to navigate Thursday and Sunday football, it's got to be Unai Emery. But yeah, so back to Elliot Anderson, I think they're going to need depth. And what Anderson gives them is he's almost, in many ways in the squad, a bit of a Joe Linton light. So he's probably his strongest position is the left forward role, which we expect Harvey Barnes will fill, but can also play that midfield, that left-hand side midfield of the midfield 3. I think we'll see a lot of Elliot Anderson. I don't think the squad is in a position where they can lose his kind of quality. We're already seeing Allan Saint-Maximin, who gave them a different tool in their armory, in many ways, being taken out of the equation. I think Anderson, who is also a bit of a unique character and has a unique skill set, I think Eddie Howe that one of the last things on his mind will be to send Elliot Anderson out anywhere, because I think he knows he's going to need him. And not only all it would take is 1 to 2 injuries in that midfield and wide area, and Anderson's suddenly a starter again. And I think he's proven the back end of last season. He's bulked. He's a very solid, robust player now, who has all the physical attributes to be able to play that midfield role, but still lacks a little bit of the defensive nous to do it. like we've said before with Eddie Howe, if there's anybody going to coach that into him, it will be somebody like Howe. And I think we'll probably see a much improved Elliot Anderson. He's already got all the physical attributes, and he'll start adding goals and assists to his game as well. So I think it could be a really exciting one. On the game last night, I'll be brutally honest with you guys, I don't really think you can read anything into it. I think you say, for example, you look into Tonali. I mean, it was 45 minutes. What we did was see the minor flashes of the quality. We expect him to be a bit of tenacity. He showed that. We expected a little bit of the passing range. We had a couple of ones where he zipped it in tight with Kieran Trippier and then spread one wide. And like you said, that bit of a no-look one over the top for Wilson was like a little flash of what we can see. Got in a little bit of a battle with the centre forward at one point, I think after about 10 minutes. And it was just kind of the little flashes of all the little things we were told. We were told that we'd expect from the player. Bruno, I'm not going to read anything into that. I mean, Christ, the guy's had about 4 weddings this summer. The only thing he's missing is
still on the honeymoon.
Yeah, and I think he needs to, he needs to just get rid of some of that rust. We're having the same conversations about Sean Longstaff at Gateshead. It happens to the best of them. It needs. They just need to. These are what these 2 games were for. Effectively, we played a 5th division side with a bunch of kids and a testimonial. I mean, I don't really think we're going. There was some good stuff last night. I love that. The first 20 minutes last night was as good as you're expecting to get in pre-season. Then they dropped off. But you've got to remember, these guys are training double. They're really putting it in now, so you do get those drop-offs in games because they're trying to get themselves at the Premier League level. And I think, again, that first 15 minutes, maybe the second half, Anthony Gordon came on. Bearing in mind, and this is why I'm not even going to read much into Anthony Gordon's performance, although it was positive. That's a guy who was playing European Championship under-21 stuff a week ago. So he's never stopped. Like, there's been no drop-off in his fitness levels or performance. So he should be sharper than a couple of blokes who play in Scotland who have just started training and just went back and are playing in a testimonial. So I'm not going to read too much into Gordon's performance or Bruno's, positive, negative. I think there was little bits that I liked, but I think it might have been Jordan mentioned it earlier that the true test kind of comes Aston Villa, Chelsea, Brighton. I think if we start to show, I don't really care about the results, but if we play some of the stuff like we did for the first 20 and probably the first 20 of the second half as well, and maybe the last 5 or 10, then I think the signs will be really good. But I even go back, we were away last year in Austria. Jordan, you probably have to remind us, but there was a team that were played the second game. I mean, if you'd try to read anything into that performance that Newcastle United had that day, you would have been very fearful. You'd be thinking there was another relegation fight on the cards. We were absolutely dreadful. Got beat off some German side, 1-0, I think it was, and we were awful. We ended up finishing 4th and getting to a cup final. Pre-season, as much as it means stuff, and I don't want to get beat. I hate it. Ask Jordan, I was in a right huff at half-time at Gateshead. I was in a right huff. Didn't like the idea.
That was just the weather.
No, I hate it. But really, when you I'll take my fan hat off and I'll put my journalistic head back on. And it really doesn't matter. Like, none of it matters. It's all about fitness. We don't really know what they're doing behind the scenes. We don't know who's been overtrained, who's been missing out sessions, what particular people's plans are, and what Eddie Howe's plans are for the summer and how he's treating each game. There could easily be the case that these 3 games that they have over there in the 8 days or whatever it is, there could be one of them that he's maybe writing off in some respects for certain players, and maybe he's pushing certain other ones in certain games. This is what pre-season is. It's not an exact science. The exact science comes when Aston Villa come to St James's Park. Is it next month? Yeah, that's when the exact science really comes into play.
The reason why you were concerned about the Gateshead result was because Sunderland were in the same situation as them last week. They were 2-0 down and went on to win it. So you were hoping that Newcastle came back so all your Macca mates wouldn't have a go back like mine did the week before.
Richie, I'll tell you what, I've got no Mac and mates. Sorry.
Good answer. Good answer. In fact, Chris, point the finger is a great answer.
Great answer.
Just one quick point to come in on the original question about Anderson. Would you send him out on loan? I agree exactly what Liam said. That time is past. Anderson isn't going on loan now. He's a vital part in our squad, and we'll need him for the matches ahead. But the same question should really be asked towards Lewis Miley, because he's, to me, is in that same role now, that our same situation that Anderson was in. So maybe a loan for him might be something that would benefit him, and then again come back like Anderson and make a play for the squad as well. So that's something that may happen as the window continues.
I think Miley's an interesting one, really, when you think about it. That he's much earlier in his development process than what Anderson was when he got to the fringes of the first team. There is a little bit more time to play with Lewis Miley, and I think possibly it'll all be there's much more qualified people than me to decide that, but given what he's shown so far, I don't think it'll be the worst thing in the world to keep him around, at least for the first 6 months of the season. Just to see if he's needed. If he isn't, there could well be League Cup duties that will be required of players. Like I say, when the Newcastle, that'll be the point where it turns into 3 fronts from 2 fronts, and it'll be a big decision, I think, that Eddie Howe's going to have to make this season, is what he prioritises and what he doesn't. This may sound like a really controversial opinion to anybody out there, and it isn't something I say lightly, but I really, and how a fan or somebody covering a football club that hasn't won anything for so long can say this, but I genuinely think the League Cup takes 4th priority easily this season, and I think the FA Cup isn't far ahead of it. I think there's got to be, in order for us to hit our goals of consistent growth as a football club, we need to really be targeting getting in the Champions League again next season, and that probably still has to be the absolute priority. The league rather than cups.
Yeah, that's fair. Chris, I think I had a question for the boys as well before we move on.
Yeah, just while we were on the subject of Elliot Anderson, really, I just wanted to know Liam and Jordan's thoughts on, where they see Elliot Anderson coming into the fold this season, because obviously at the back end of the season there was a couple of cameo appearances in that left wing position, so as part of the front 3. But I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think yesterday he was part of the midfield 3. And I just wondered whether you thought that Eddie Howe sees Elliot Anderson long term as part of the front 3, or maybe part of the middle 3.
Yeah, so Eddie Howe got asked on record about Elliot Anderson last year and his best position, and he always said he feels his best position was a left forward. I'm not sure what Liam's doing there,
Everyone's saying I'm proper orange. I've got a tan, so I thought I'm going to actually just open the blinds. It's just the lighting. I haven't been sitting baking anywhere, or I haven't been on the sunbed. It's just an awful lighting.
Mad dog.
As you guys know, even back from my early NUFC Matters days, I could never get the lighting right, or there was always something going wrong. So I thought I'd better at least open the blinds.
I'm glad you've explained that, Liam, because we're hitting an angle there I had no one needed to say. I didn't think so.
It was nearly a Mitch and his budgie smugglers moment again, wasn't it?
But yeah, Elliot Anderson, and I think he's probably best suited as a left forward as well. But I think his versatility is a real plus, and you can see that with the recruitment that Eddie Howe has made over the last 12 months. They've signed players that can play multiple positions. For example, Anthony Gordon can play either side. He had a cameo, obviously, centre midfield against Chelsea. Mm-hmm. Alexander Isak signs a central striker, but again has played out wide. Dan Burn, centre back, left back. So there's a lot of thought goes into recruitment in terms of not to sign a player for a position, but can they fill multiple positions? Because, as I say, when you compete in 4 competitions, that's going to be crucial this season. So I think Elliot Anderson's role going forward, particularly for this season, will be to fill in when needed. I don't think he'll be a starter, but he'll be a big asset in terms of having to fill in if Joe Linton, for example, or Harvey Barnes, if he comes in, gets injured on the left wing, or if there's an injury at midfield. Elliot Anderson is the perfect man to fulfill both positions.
No. Be interesting to see how that one develops next season. But yeah, I agree. I think he's going to be an important squad player, fighting on four fronts. Massive thanks to everyone. Look, 530 plus in the chat. Thank you for coming and joining us in the show tonight. If you haven't already, click the likes. Daz has set us a task, 500 likes. Thanks for watching, guys. And whilst you're there, if you haven't already, new to the channel, click that subscribe and come and join the Loaded family. Lots more content to come on Loaded Mag and UFC with this boy. So stay tuned. Right. Look, it wasn't all football talk on the pitch yesterday as we were running up to the game, because obviously news broke out and was simmering on social media about one particular person. And we've had this conversation over the course of the summer of whether we were going to keep him or whether we were going to sell him. Now, it seems like that decision has been made. And look, it's talked about that there's a bid been accepted, but and Fab Romano's talked about it as well from that perspective. But you guys as well were there. You spoke to Eddie Howe after the game with regards to what the situation is with Allan Saint-Maximin. Just explain what the situation is as you see it right now, boys. And Jordan, I'll let you expand on this. What's the situation of Allan Saint-Maximin now? What do you expect to happen? And, what did Eddie Howe say to you in particular after the game?
Yeah, so, I mean, it's sort of widely documented now, but Allan Saint-Maximin will leave the football club. Eddie Howe, I think, in an ideal world, will want to keep him around the squad because of the qualities he brings and that sort of X factor and those moments that he can bring you. But ultimately, it has came down to a financial fair play decision. So Eddie Howe against Gateshead on Friday was quite well. He was very honest about his budget, which I was really surprised at. Spelled it out. Had a really strict budget, struggling to recruit players because of financial fair play. Spoke about being creative in the market to try and stay within financial fair play regulations. And then little behold, 3 days later, Allan Saint-Maximin is on his way to Saudi Arabia, and Allan Saint-Maximin is the club's only sellable asset. So they've had an opportunity to sell him. They've opted to do that. I'm not quite sure on the fee, but what it'll do is it will allow them to bring Harvey Barnes in, which I think, if you compare the two, Eddie Howe won't admit this publicly, but I think if he's selling Allan Saint-Maximin for Harvey Barnes, it's because he wants Harvey Barnes over Allan Saint-Maximin. It's as simple as that. There's a lot of supporters out there that I know disagree with that assessment, but I actually agree with Eddie Howe. I think selling Allan Saint-Maximin for Harvey Barnes is a decision I actually agree with, because if you look at their stats in the Premier League, I think Allan Saint-Maximin scored 11 goals, 19 assists. Harvey Barnes, 35 goals, 25 assists. So you look at the stats there, and although Saint-Maximin is great on his day, hasn't consistently done it under Eddie Howe, unfortunately, whereas Harvey Barnes has been a man that has done it consistently in the Premier League since breaking through with Leicester. So, yeah, it's almost as if Saint-Maximin has been sacrificed for funds to bring other players in. So I suspect what will happen now is the funds from the Saint-Maximin deal will allow them to bring in Harvey Barnes and probably another player as well, while that's at a left back, a defender, or another position that Eddie Howe sees fit as well. So he's the only sellable asset. Newcastle need funds, and Allan Saint-Maximin is the man that's been chosen to go. A lot of sadness I sense from the fan base yesterday because of what he's done for the club. I spoke before the game about Allan Saint-Maximin being a sort of a bright light in very dark moments under Steve Bruce and the latter stages of the Mike Ashley era. If it wasn't for Allan Saint-Maximin, I doubt that the club would have stayed in the Premier League for those seasons under Steve Bruce, particularly in the one where the lockdown season when I think Newcastle got beat 3-0 at Brighton. Steve Bruce's position became untenable. Saint-Maximin came back with Callum Wilson and they went on an unbelievable run to stay up. So them moments for what he's done for this club is exceptional. been a fantastic servant. But I just think naturally he's a player that's just fell behind the times a little bit. Newcastle have progressed rapidly, and Saint-Maximin has been left behind essentially because had a really frustrating year last year. Didn't play many games at all. I think it was only 12 Premier League starts in the end. Obviously hamstring injuries. So, Saint-Maximin being injured for a period of games isn't unusual. He's had that throughout his Newcastle career. So he can't always be relied upon to play games. If he was, then I'm sure you would still be at the football club. But as I say, if you compare to Harvey Barnes has been consistently a consistent performer and stayed consistently fit as well. So yeah, that's the situation. Saint-Maximin will go, and it looks like Harvey Barnes will replace him.
I need tissues, man. Tissues. Where the tissues at, man?
First Madison and now ASM.
Emotional, Jordan. You can't do that to me. Got no tissues left. Liam, I'm going to come to you with a kind of a side note on ASM. Is this the reason? Is ASM the reason why Harvey Barnes hasn't been done yet as a deal? Because this has been kind of rumored now for a week and a half, maybe even two, that Harvey Barnes to Newcastle was a thing, but yet it hasn't yet been done. In your opinion, do you think the Allan Saint-Maximin deal was crucial or the main reason why this Harvey Barnes deal is looking like it's getting closer to on the verge of being done?
Yes, I think that's a fair assumption to make. We don't know the ins and outs of it exactly, but I think Barnes, from a move perspective, has been quite well progressed for a little while. I don't mean the deal itself. I mean the groundwork that goes in and around that. And I think Jordan makes a really important point. And we talked about this earlier today when we were on the way back from Glasgow, is that no matter what Eddie Howe says, no matter what the fans think, and no matter what FFP restrictions may be telling, the bean counters at the football club, Eddie Howe's had a very simple decision he had to make. And if he'd valued Allan Saint-Maximin as the man to take Newcastle United forward, he did still have the power to keep him. He could have kept Allan Saint-Maximin and not decided to look elsewhere, but he did, and he looks at Harvey Barnes as a more valuable player in his squad moving forward than what Allan Saint-Maximin does. And now I don't doubt what he says. I think in an ideal world that you would love to have kept Allan Saint-Maximin in and around the football club. Just like I talked about tools in the armory before, there isn't really anybody like him. But I want to kind of, I don't want to downplay the achievements of Allan Saint-Maximin, and he's really got us off our seats. And you pay good money to see footballers like him, and that's what the game's all about. It isn't all about run-of-the-mill boring footballers. You want to see a lad get the ball at his feet and try to take people on. You want to see somebody get you excited about the game of football, and Allan Saint-Maximin, at his very best, did that. But I do think Newcastle United fans are very attached to the notion and a dream of what they want Allan Saint-Maximin to be, rather than what he actually is. Because the stats don't really lie. I love him as a footballer, but I'll keep saying it, and he can't be relied upon to play enough games in a season. Is the first part that you want players in your squad to play games, and he doesn't do enough of that. We've talked a lot about Callum Wilson being the most injury-prone player in the squad. I'd love to see the statistics, but I think Allan Saint-Maximin has probably missed more games over the course of the last 3 years than what Callum Wilson has, just through injuries here and there. The consistency, the level of performance just hasn't been there. We've seen flashes of 4 or 5 games where you're like, wow, this guy, right, here he goes. This is the moment. This is when Allan Saint-Maximin tears it up for 6 months or a whole season. He's never done that. He's only ever done it in bursts for 2 to 3 games here, 2 to 3 games there. And I think that's the thing. Fans see that and remember the real, the highlight reel moments that Allan Saint-Maximin can produce like very few others in world football. But they easily overlook mostly what he produced, and the amount of goals for the prominence that he had in a team and the position that he plays. Hasn't scored a lot of goals. In 100 odd games, he scored around 11 or 12 goals, and you wouldn't say that's particularly good for a forward. If he was a forward, then you said, right, so he's produced 30, he's got 25 assists in the same period of time, then you let him off with a goals account. But he hasn't got that either. And what are we saying? What are we now judging him on? Are we saying, okay, so he doesn't score and he doesn't really assist, but he draws other players in, so he allows other players to score and assist. Well, there hasn't really been a massive amount of that as well because he hasn't been on the pitch. So you've got to look at it. It's a squad game. And Eddie Howe's probably looking at Harvey Barnes, and I don't know this is what he's thinking, but it's definitely my thinking when I look at the two players. Is Allan Saint-Maximin a more talented footballer than Harvey Barnes? I don't think Harvey Barnes can lace his boots in terms of absolute talent. But does Harvey Barnes consistently turn up on a Saturday, fit and available? Does Harvey Barnes consistently score goals? Whether he has dips in form, brilliant one game, not so much the other game. Whether he's a little bit inconsistent, yes, but we get that from Saint-Maximin anyway. Does he create goals? You just have to look at the statistics. There's very few players who play in the same positions, right or left, in the Premier League who've done it over the last 3 seasons like Harvey Barnes has. And you would say at the price they're getting him at, if he can produce that kind of stuff again this season, looks a bargain, really. I don't see anybody in the Newcastle United squad, be it Jacob Murphy, Miguel Almiron, Anthony Gordon has to come into that category, be Allan Saint-Maximin, any of those players in and around those areas who have got anywhere close to the output that Harvey Barnes has. So surely we've got to look at it and say they potentially, I mean, there's a lot of, like I say, there's a lot of people who hang on to the notion that they love Allan Saint-Maximin because of what they want him to be. They want him to be that man who absolutely tore Manchester City apart. They want him to be that player every week. He just doesn't have it. He can't do that. He never did it in France, and he's never done it in this country where he's consistently been able to produce that. And I'd be very surprised if he goes anywhere, whether that be the Saudi League or whether that be anywhere, and produces consistent levels of performance like what we know he can, what he's got in his locker. Because what I would also go back to and say is, if he'd been producing those level of performances in France on a consistent level, he would never have signed for Newcastle United because him at his best is elite, but it just doesn't happen very often. And that's why he was at Nice. And that's why he came to relegation threat in Newcastle United. And that's why after doing so well in his first season in the Premier League and seeing Soccer AM highlights reels and all this kind of stuff and everybody raving about him, all the so-called experts, there wasn't a queue of football clubs that summer ready to sign him. And there hasn't been every single window. Newcastle United were willing to sell Allan Saint-Maximin last summer. They were desperate to sell him. They wanted to get him out the door. Nobody would pay the money for him. They wouldn't put £40 million down and buy Allan Saint-Maximin. And what I would say again, the initial bids and the initial talks with the Saudi club, you're talking in and around the £20 million mark for Allan Saint-Maximin. So surely if you're a club and Allan Saint-Maximin is as good as everybody envisages him, where's the queue of football clubs willing to get involved in a bidding race for Allan Saint-Maximin at £20 million? I don't see it. It isn't there. So I think there's a little bit of a disconnect between the idea of what Newcastle United fans want Allan Saint-Maximin to be and what they dream he is and what he actually is, which is a player who can on his day excite beyond anything, but has never produced a run of consistent games or been fit enough to produce a run of consistent performances in the Premier League. And that's why he's valued at the fee that he is, and probably why he's been at Newcastle United and clubs like Nice and St Etienne and others and flitted into Germany and out. He's never really been or played at a top club in a top league. Look, I'm not bringing Newcastle down there, but you know what I'm saying. He signed for Newcastle United under Steve Bruce, who were threatened with relegation. He wasn't getting looked at by Liverpool at the time, and there's reasons for that because they look at players and they've thought, "Wow, what a player he is," but doesn't produce it on a consistent level, and that's why he's worth what he's worth, and there isn't a queue of football clubs looking to sign him.
I think the interesting thing is,
I feel like I've been so downbeat there. I feel like I've been properly dressed. Max is 3 years.
Reality.
Liam, look at the chat. There were so many people that were in agreement with you. I think you've assessed Allan Saint-Maximin's situation really, really well. And it was only a year ago that we were having the same conversation with Allan Saint-Maximin, and we said he's got a year. He's got a year to turn it around. He's got a year to put in those consistent performances in. And if he doesn't, then he has to leave the club. It's as simple as that.
Pete, if you go back to when we did like squad game last year and also this summer, right? If we all said it was he had that year to improve himself, didn't we? Yeah. If he'd had the year last year that Miggy'd had, because bear in mind, realistically this summer, the only two sellable assets that we had was Maxi and probably Miggy, realistically, if you want to improve, because obviously we saw Miggy light up the first half of the season, but he was, second half of the season, he had a big drop off. So it was all about consistency. But if Maxi had come out and had the season that he'd had, you'd probably be looking at Miggy's probably the one that would be moving on rather than Maxi, because he delivered, he'd been playing. I think the only thing disappointing-wise for Maxi, this is something we discussed on last week's show, Pete, was the thing you feel sorry for Allan Saint-Maximin. Yes, you can't help the fact his appearances. He obviously, it's his fault for the goals and stuff and the assists. But if you look at the support and cast probably around him, and someone put it in the chat before about chances created, the amount of chances that he created, but the support and cast around or letting down or through poor finishing or whatever, I think that's probably the only thing for me that I felt a little bit let down for Allan Saint-Maximin, because there's a lot of chances being created, but they weren't finished, sort of thing. So
it happened on Saturday as well. He put in two great opportunities for Sean Longstaff and Jamal Lewis, and both were missed. You're absolutely right, but Liam's obviously quite rightly said it's the amount of time he's on the pitch. If you're fighting on four fronts, you need everybody fit. You need everybody fit and firing, because you need choices from everybody and know that your best players are always going to be there. And you look at some of the players that Eddie Howe has brought in, they're never very rarely injured. They're always consistent in their performance. And they're players that are fought on at least three fronts throughout the season. And he's building a team that are not only fit and able, but they've got experience of playing at that level. And Liam's quite right. Ultimately, Newcastle are the biggest team he's played for in his career. And that's the height of his career, and that's where he's got to. But look, I love what he's done for the club. I've got in mind, like Liam said, he kept us afloat when things were not going well. I think Jordan might have said actually under Steve Bruce. But we have to evolve as a club. We have to evolve as a club. We have to improve.
We've got to get used to it. At some point, we're going to be. There's chances we could be. Obviously, Kieran Trippier's going to go. They might decide that there's an improvement on Joe Linton. Everyone loves Joe Linton. This is the thing. It's going to be a constant going forward. Now the squad's going to be rehashed every season, and someone's going to be looking over their shoulders as a possible replacement. We're going to have to get used to it now. Unfortunately, it's part and parcel of the course.
Daz, who were the two players that we talked about that could potentially be in the same position next year? I don't know if you can remember the two players before we went live tonight. We said we highlighted two players that could potentially be in Saint-Maximin's position in moving on.
Oh yeah, you said Shar as one potential. We're talking about who we could potentially offload. Maybe not this window, but next window, maybe next summer. If we strike up a good relationship, and this deal is because there's a few outlets not so happy about this and complaining that here's the start of it now in Newcastle dealing with Saudi, but forgetting the fact that loads of other clubs have had deals with clubs in Saudi well before we did. But yeah, Shah was the one. Who was the other one, Pete?
Well, there was actually two. We talked about Miggy next year being the potential.
Miggy, yeah.
And actually, and a lot of people might disagree with this, potentially Callum Wilson. Callum Wilson could potentially get moved on next summer in a very similar fashion, whether it's to Saudi or to another club. These are household names. These are players that fans love. I love Callum Wilson as a striker. I love him. The fact that he's on number 9 and he scored 18 goals last season. But as a reality, these players are going to move on. Allan Saint-Maximin, for example, is going to be playing next season. And Chris, we talked about this in the chat earlier with a player I absolutely love in the Premier League. And I talked to a Man City fan on another channel and I was like, how the hell are you letting him go in Riyad Mahrez? That's going to be their two wingers potentially in Saudi. Mahrez on one side, Maxi on another. Like, it's crazy. But Man City fans are in the same boat. They're letting a player go that they don't want to let leave. But it's part of their transition and they've just won the treble. So for us, we've got to come to expect this. But
just before we move on, because we never get a chance to really speak about this player. I know this player is very close to my heart, and I'm pretty sure he's very close to Liam's heart as well. And that's why I want to bring him up, because like when Hassan Ben Arfa left Newcastle, I was absolutely devastated. And since Allan Saint-Maximin's come in, I've always kind of hoped and believed and thought that Saint-Maximin could be on the same level as Hassan Ben Arfa. And Liam, do you think that everyone expected or believed or thought that Saint-Maximin would reach those Ben Arfa levels? I'm not saying Ben Arfa's like, the greatest player ever to pull on a Newcastle shirt, but he was certainly my favourite player. And I just think he had that, that you mentioned about Saint-Maximin being one of those players, who could get your bum off the seat and very exciting, would produce moments of sheer brilliance. And do you think that that's why everyone's kind of been so, maybe disappointed's not the word, but a bit, sad, really, and thankful for Maxi for what he's done, but also thinking, do you know what, he could have been so much more. He could have done so much more. And, who knows what would have happened this season? We'll never find out. But do you think that's where, like, the furore around Saint-Maximin's always been, in that he's a player like Hassan Ben Arfa, like Tino Asprilla, that kind of maverick player?
Yeah, I mean, there's the enigmatic sort of French forward winger. We've become accustomed to it on Tyneside, haven't we? Allan Saint-Maximin fits in that category. I mean, you could reel them off: Laurent Robert, David Ginola. You go back in recent history and rank them in any way that you see fit. You're quite right there in saying that, yes, Hassan Ben Arfa was a player that I really, really admired. I think technically, I think there was, at his peak powers, there probably weren't many players in world football who could literally do what he could do with a football. But such a troubled footballer and person in many senses that it's actually possible to argue that Allan Saint-Maximin's had maybe more of an impact, maybe not, probably close, not much of a difference. But I genuinely, I'm going to be honest with this, and it's maybe just my opinion, but I don't think Allan Saint-Maximin is anywhere even close to the level of footballer that Hassan Ben Arfa was. I mean, Hassan Ben Arfa broke through in that French generation, should have been, it was the Karim Benzema, Samir Nasri, and you just look at that front trio that they had in the youth teams. And Hassan Ben Arfa was going to be he was the one. He was the one who would be the world's best footballer. Never got anywhere close to even getting to that. His ego, his attitude, just didn't allow him to ever become the application, didn't ever allow him to become the player that he should have become. And of course, when you look at that, it probably a lot of the same things hit Samir Nasri in many ways later into his career as well. Although he had a more successful career than Hassan Ben Arfa in many ways. Karim Benzema, I don't think anybody would have expected out of those three players would be the pinnacle of that generation of French talent. And he is by far probably turned out to be one of the greatest sort of strikers that Europe's produced in the last 20 years. Hassan Ben Arfa, for me, unplayable, an unplayable footballer, was a pure magician, Peter Beardsley-esque in the way that he could just control and mesmerise with a ball at his feet. Lionel Messi springs to mind as well. The type that it's just, you're not playing the same sport as them if you're trying to. When you see defenders sometimes trying to tackle them or track them or win the ball off them. Low centres of gravity, can just glide past you, can beat you with skill, can beat you with pace, can beat you any way they choose. But I mentioned two other names there, Peter Beardsley and Lionel Messi, and it's you wouldn't even put Hassan Ben Arfa in that conversation when it comes to the levels of success they achieved in their career. And that's very much down to effort and application. Allan Saint-Maximin, I don't think is anywhere near as talented as that level of player. But I think, there are a lot of parallels to it. that I do believe if Allan Saint-Maximin has Manchester City performances in his locker, and when you see, that's the most frustrating thing about these players, when you see that performance, you know it's in there and it is possible if they want it to be, and if they want to get their head down, and if they want to be coached, and if they want to leave their ego at the door, and if they want to do everything that a good manager has to, everything has to fall into place. They have to be the right manager, the right team, the right environment. But you would think a player like that could produce something like that, close to those type of performances week in, week out. And Allan Saint-Maximin has never done that. And that's, like I say, that's why he played for 3 years at Newcastle United and didn't move on elsewhere, and hasn't really got a host of European clubs looking to knock down the door. I've seen someone come in the comments there and pick up on that what I said and said, where's the queue for Harvey Barnes? And yes, I actually accept that as well. I don't think Harvey Barnes necessarily is somebody with top six, teams we were fighting for Champions League places aren't really queuing up to sign Harvey Barnes. But I think a lot about what Eddie Howe's built in Newcastle United is the team is more than the sum of its parts. I think it's all about the press, the effort, the tracking back, the getting in shape, the being able to break out. It's all about processes rather than individuals. And I think Harvey Barnes, haven't seen him. And look, I'm not going to sit here and say I'm a Harvey Barnes expert. I've seen him play. I was actually we played Leicester a fair few times last season, and I was less than impressed by his performances against Newcastle United. He did nothing in those games where you'd look up and say, wow, right, he's the man. He's the man to take us, on to the next level in Champions League football. But stats don't lie, and his stats are incredible. And I still think there's room for growth. I think he's a player who's at a level where he can produce consistently in the Premier League, but there's still room for growth there. And I think a manager like Eddie Howe can squeeze a little bit more out of him.
I'm going to jump in one second because I'm going through all the questions coming into the chat, and there is a definite divide here on in our chat. So let's assume it's across the fan base. So I suppose it's looking at the bigger picture, and Jordan touched on it earlier. So selling ASM would allow us to bring in at least 2 players, and we're looking like that's Barnes and maybe Tivo Livramento. And then maybe selling a few more. I know we're going to get onto it in a few minutes, Pete, but are trying to offload a few more. I know it's difficult because the contracts are on and the wages are on and the level they're at. But do you see that even with this ASM sale that will add as well to potential third incoming apart from the 2 that I just mentioned?
Yeah, I mean, possibly. I think it all depends on, again, what sort of business they can do. So I think one thing that hasn't really been spoken about yet is they might go down the loan market and look to do deals where, it's a loan now, pay later. So you loan a player now and then you buy him next summer.
Obligation to buy.
Yeah. But I think at this moment, I do honestly believe the football club when Eddie Howe was saying that his budget is very strict and they have to sell Saint-Maximin to fund other moves. So I think there'll be at least 2 players. I think a third might be a push, unless they get, as Eddie Howe's described it, creative in terms of, okay, if they get a player, can they pay a really low sum and then spread the rest of the transfer fee over 5-6 years, whatever the contract length is. So again, they've just got to be really creative. The budget is strict. It's frustrating because in a summer going into a Champions League, ideally you need 5 quality players to come in and strengthen your squad. But unfortunately, I say unfortunately, but Newcastle have accelerated so fast that the budget hasn't grew with it in terms of your sponsorship deals and etc. And just building the business behind the scenes where you can bring in extra funds. It's still very much a hangover from the Mike Ashley era that they're eventually getting there in terms of increasing the finances. But look, they're only under 2 years from a takeover and they find themselves in the Champions League. So I do get it. Ideally, they need to strengthen, they need to buy more, but they're in a position now where they've accelerated it too quick. And if you have supporters out there, all right, would you rather spend more each summer or would you rather have Champions League quicker? and I know what everyone would say it would be Champions League right now. So the situation Newcastle find themselves in, me personally, I wouldn't change it. I think it'll grow with time, and in the next couple of transfer windows, they will have the money in place to go out and spend more money in the transfer market. But as I say, at this moment in time, financial fair play is an issue.
Some breaking news just popped up on the screen. I don't know if we've got the old ticker ready, but David Ornstein has just said that a deal has been agreed with Harvey Barnes this evening. 38 million, moving from Leicester to Newcastle. Personal terms won't be a problem. He's just reported that tonight. Boys, obviously you've been on with us, so I'm not sure what you've heard with regards to that. But look, I think we all assumed that deal was going to go through. We've talked about it quite openly on this, but David Ornstein's put that out tonight, so that's kind of where we are with that. And there's been talk, actually, and I don't know what you boys know. Been talk obviously on social media. There's always talk in various sections about medicals and stuff. Like, do you think it's as close as a medical? Do you see Harvey Barnes, in your opinions, potentially being on the plane and being with the squad in time for the game on Sunday?
I think Sunday might be a push. Although if they were to conduct the medical tomorrow, Friday, potentially. But they want to get America as quick as possible. There's no doubt about that. They want to have them involved in the 3 games. But yeah, agreeing the transfer fee comes as no surprise because, as I was told earlier, it was really close. The player himself has already agreed to come. We reported last week that the player's actually looked at properties in the northeast, so he's been primed for the move for quite a while. He's desperate to make the move. Champions League football, obviously the height of his career. So yeah, it's agreed now. I think it's a really, really, really good deal, and I suspect they'll want to get him into America as quickly as possible. When a medical gets conducted, hopefully I'll find out more information on that after I get off here. But yeah, they've got 3 games in America. They want Harvey Barnes there, and they want him involved because certainly them 3 games are seen as a big test of Newcastle's credentials, as Eddie Howe has described it. And they want to see how Barnes fits in. They want to have him. They want to have him embedded in the squad in time for that first game, so he can potentially start against Aston Villa. So yeah, I'd imagine a medical will take place very soon, and then he will fly out to America at some point.
Yeah, I've got to be honest. I think you boys, Liam and Jordan, you spoke very, very well with regards to Harvey Barnes. He is an upgrade on what we've currently got. You take Allan Saint-Maximin aside, he is an improvement in our left wing position. Goals and assists. There's all the compilations of his goals creeping onto social media now. But some of it, you look at some of the goals, they're fantastic. And the one thing I'll say, and this is not throwing any sort of shade on Allan Saint-Maximin, but you look at the positions that Harvey Barnes picks up. They're very similar to Allan Saint-Maximin, but he puts them away, and that's the difference. That is the key difference. You look at the cutting in the inside on the right. You look at the chop onto the left foot. He puts them in the net, and that's what we need like next season. And you think of the amount of chances we create on our wings for Miggy, for Allan Saint-Maximin, for Joe Linton, who got 7-8 goals last season himself. You put Harvey Barnes in that position with his electric pace, his ability to run deep, his ability to press high. I genuinely believe that anyone that has kind of any doubts, and there's people in the chat that are even saying 13 million, they're questioning it. That I genuinely believe that by the time we get to sort of Christmas time, people will have a different opinion. I do, but that one's going to rumble on. That's for sure. Liam, I know you've got a short period of time before we go, and this is not. We always say it every week, but I'm promising this is not going to be a late one. Are there any questions in the chat that we can fire to Liam and Jordan before that kind of we move on to this kind of next section with one or two other players that we could potentially be linked with.
Sure, I'm going to try and get the ones that matter. As in Darlow. What is happening with Darlow, lads? There's talks of him go. There was talks of Middlesbrough ages ago, then Hull, but they don't want to pay the money. There's Leeds, there's Bournemouth, and he's gone to the US, I think. So, any news on Darlow?
I think the fairest assumption you can make on that one, with the information that we hear, is that Caldwell won't be a Newcastle United player by the end of the window. I'm not going to sit here and say they're going to sell him for X amount of money or he's going to go to X club, because the days of, let's be honest, Caldwell is a number 2 or 3 goalkeeper, number 2 at best in the Premier League, and he is a starting goalkeeper in the Championship. That's kind of his level. The Championship of today hasn't got the same get out of jail card that it maybe did 5 years ago, where you could shift players from the Premier League and drop them down to the Championship, and teams would pay considerable fees because they were all chasing the tail, trying to get back into the magic pot of gold, which is the Premier League. There just isn't that kind of financial might after the COVID era in the Championship. So it's going to be a tough sell to get him out the door to a Championship club for the fees that they kind of want. Newcastle United are driving a hard bargain. Darlow has he's a reasonable player to think he could make a little bit of money back on the player. But there's others that are really of a massive concern. Jeff Hendrick and Ryan Fraser are a millstone around Newcastle United's neck this summer, genuinely. 120, around 100 plus, let's say, fairly, 100 plus K per week going out on 2 players who, again, arguably are teams that would drop into teams in the playoff mix in the Championship. And you're just not going to get anybody covering 70 grand a week for Ryan Fraser at that level. And that's the problem that Newcastle United have. The biggest hangover from the Mike Ashley era is the lack of investment brought the club players who are going to be really tough to shift on, because you cannot get rid of players who clubs don't want to buy and don't want to take. They're going to need a bit of goodwill on the players' part and on club's part. But with the likes of those players, and Darlow could end up being that, it could be an end of window thing, much like it was the last time round. And you're probably going to end up Newcastle having to pay a fair chunk of his wages, which doesn't really help that cause much. And being brutally honest, they can't wait that long. They can't wait to the end of the window. We'll keep talking about it like it's some kind of game of FIFA or Football Manager. See a lot of fans like, right, here's a list of the 5 players that we think are crap, and the 5 players that this is the X amount that I think they're worth. Yeah, that's fine. But actually getting, hard money on the table for these kind of players isn't that easy. It's not like playing Football Manager. You can't do it. And the notion, I see a lot of fans toying with the idea, and yes, I know it's a bit of fun. But they talk about, well, why can't we get the Saudi? Why can't we get, because the Saudis not buy Ryan Fraser or somebody like that? Well, again, the whole idea on the Saudi Pro League improving its lot is they're not going to fill it full of rubbish. Yes, they're mercenaries to a large extent for the money, because they're not going there for the highest level of football. They're going there for the money, and they will be treated like kings, any players that do go over there. But yeah, they're doing it because they want to improve their own domestic competition. You don't improve your domestic competition by signing Championship footballers. There'll be very little of that. They'll make mistakes, don't get us wrong. There will be the odd one that goes over there. But they're looking for flashy players to ignite a nation and really get people in supporting their own football clubs and going to matches in the domestic game.
So we're not sending the Irish Pelly and Jeff Hendrick out there. So by the sounds of it,
yeah, I was asking that. I actually put that to somebody at the football club. I was like, can you not get on the phone and convince some of these Saudi owners and Saudi groups that are dealing with PIF and say, look, you never guess, we've got the Irish Jude Bellingham here on Newcastle United's books, and his name's Jeff.
Yeah. And what about the other way? Because Donald asked the question: do you guys think we may loan players from the PIF own clubs? There's not a lot of talk of Neves. But what's your thoughts on something like that happening?
Yeah, well, that'd be amazing, wouldn't it? Maxi can come back in a few weeks' time once he's signed. I don't see it.
I am mindful. Liam, do you have to jump off now? Because I know you've.
I mean, I can hang on for another 5 minutes or so if you got any more questions. If not, then yeah.
They're probably with us. It's great.
Okay. I've one here from Book Tiz. But someone actually had a comment about Keith Downey jumping on your bandwagon and setting up a YouTube channel as well. But this question is Keith Downey related, and it's here that Keith Downey is saying that all the talk about the centre back from Monaco joining is agent bullshit.
I wouldn't go that strong, but there hasn't been. I haven't spoken to anybody that suggested he's on the agenda, and this is another one that I would. I mean, you guys deal with all the rumours left, right, and centre, but I mean, this talk of the Georgian winger. I'm not even going to go there with his name. It's bloody stupid.
Liam, this is Daz's boy, his star boy, Kvaratskhelia.
But I said it 8 months ago, Pete, as a one to watch for the future if we got Champions League but at that stage he wasn't 100 million. It's only in the last couple of weeks now. But hey, I got Tonali right, but it's another while to wait, I think, for KK to rock up with Newcastle.
It doesn't say he isn't a good player, and it doesn't say that Newcastle United don't have feelers on everybody in the emerging markets, emerging players everywhere, but they ain't paying 100 million quid for anybody. So
why is that link continued? It's continued for like 6-7 days, like nearly a week now. Like
what I'm saying is there is Newcastle United have got feelers out everywhere, and it's not a case of that they've looked at him and he's been on the radar of Newcastle United for a couple of years. It's not a case of it's just suddenly just because he's done well at Napoli and everybody's become widely looked at as the next Gullo and Ho from Italian football. Doesn't mean that he hasn't been monitored by people who do this for a living. And there is still a massive disparity, particularly in Europe and the media in Europe. And I'm talking about Portugal, I'm talking about Italy, I'm talking about Turkey. And Jordan will probably laugh at this because we have these conversations all the time. Like the kind of links that you see in these places where the media is huge. They have sport newspapers that have to churn out, ridiculous amounts of stories compared to what we do in this country and other places. There's a massive disparity between the reality of what Newcastle United is and what it's still seen as because of the PIF ownership. And no matter what's said and what's briefed, that isn't going away. So you still see a lot of links to Newcastle United as, right, agent talk, who's interested, Newcastle United, with an idea that it drives the price up. But real talk around real players, Newcastle United aren't being really linked with these kind of players, just because the landscape of where the club finds itself at the moment just isn't anywhere close to that. Now, but I caveat that with this summer's been different to last summer, but I do caveat that with, at this point last summer we would never have signed Alexander Isak, and we ended up signing him, and I can't sit here and say I know definitively exactly what Dan Ash was plotting and exactly what Eddie Howe and Amanda and Mia. I don't think anybody really can. But you speak to certain people, you get your information, and you build an overall picture. And it would be so at odds with the overall picture of what not just people. I think people come up with this notion and this idea again that it's like the club are briefing them because they want to fool everybody, and that's exactly what they're doing. And the journalists are stupid, and that's almost built on the idea that you speak to one person and you're not speaking to lots of people. And the overall picture that you get, not just from the football club, but from people outside the football club, from people dealing with the football club, is just not the image that is portrayed at times. And I want, as a fan, would it be being duped? I would love them really be sitting there going, right, well, we've played this FFP card brilliantly again, and this time we've done it every window, but this time we've actually really got people believing that we've got no money. Well done, Eddie. You get a little bonus for that. You've played a blinder, mate, but it just is. I just don't think it is. And I would love it if, as a fan, if it was, and we end up signing the Georgian boy, and we're all jumping from the rooftops. So the first game of the season was smash Aston Villa 5-0. He scores a hat-trick, and so does, Osimhen comes on off the bench for his debut and bags a goal at the end, and we're all laughing and we'll win the Champions League. But no, that's just not the reality.
You've been looking at my FIFA team, haven't you?
Love it.
Yeah, I mean, another. This one, Liam, this always comes up. I'm sure you get asked a loads of times, but from Alden McCarthy asked about the book. Is the book on hold or is it still in the background?
I think I was probably one of the only people who didn't really speak about a book. I think a book was. I think every Tom, Dick, and Harry's had us writing a book, and obviously I'll admit I was writing a book at one point. Just sometimes life takes over. There could be a book in the future, but I'm not going to sit here and say I'm actively working on it or have anything beyond the book, as effectively the book got stalled, not for any reason, just purely because I didn't have the time to commit to what I was doing with a family. My job changed very quickly. So my would have been a year and a half, 2 years ago. I'm sure things just changed for me work-wise, and just didn't allow us the 3 to 4 hours I was working every evening on writing it. I took a decision for myself to say, nah, I'm not going to run myself into the ground for the sake of this book, and I might disappoint people out there. It might get done, and nobody might read it, but if it does get done, it'll be on my terms, and it'll be whenever I ever see the chance or have the want to finally complete it.
I think
in your anniversary.
Everyone in the fan base will want to listen and read to that video, whether it's audio, whether it's book related. Everyone is going to want to hear what you've got to say. That's for sure. Look, I am mindful. It has been that 5 minutes, and I'm going to let you go because I think we'll fire some questions at Jordan. I feel like he feels left out, and we want to get some questions, Jordan.
He listens to me all day, so he'll be fed up with this. He's come on for a break, and here I'll pop up on his screen. Right, cheers, lads.
Thanks, Liam.
Always a pleasure.
Hey, Liam.
And you're always welcome on the channel. You know that anyway. Part of the furniture, but great to have you on, Liam.
And subscribe to Geordie Journos, and also the QR link is in the picture for the show. Scan that, and you'll get it to Newcastle World, and subscribe there as well. Sign up for the newsletter.
Definitely.
Cheers, lads.
Top man. You take care.
See you, Liam.
Take care, Liam.
Always
now, Jordan, we have the tough questions for you.
Sorry.
Jordan's like.
I'll have to wake myself back up here to actually answer these questions. I feel like I've just fell asleep for the last 10 minutes. It's hard work. Liam's voice just goes through me all the time now. I hear it that much. There's no hiding from it these days.
And he's just turned off the door, so he won't hear any of what you just said.
Well, he'll be back. Do you want to crack on, Pete, for a while, or will we go back to some of the questions?
Yeah. One player that's kind of come onto the radar again in the last few days, and maybe it's because of the Allan Saint-Maximin situation. And Peter Rourke put a piece out the other day around this. He was on the show last week around Livramento. It's been talked about that Livramento is a target, someone that we're looking at. From your perspective, Jordan, Livramento is he still one that Newcastle are actively looking at? And in your opinion, can you see Newcastle kind of actioning that move now that the Allan Saint-Maximin deal looks to be agreed? Harvey Barnes looks to be coming in at this stage. What do you think?
Yeah, so the deal is still active because he's very highly rated by Eddie Howe and most importantly Dan Ashworth as well. So as I said before about Newcastle selling on Saint-Maximin, how much it adds to the budget. Now, I did ask Eddie Howe last night about selling on Saint-Maximin. I said, how many players do you anticipate being able to sign with the funds from selling on Saint-Maximin? And he said, well, it doesn't change anything massively, but he does hope to bring in a couple of more. So with that, the deal that everyone is speaking about is Livramento. So that could potentially progress. I'm not going to sit here and say it definitely will because I'm not too sure, but it is a player they're hugely interested in. I was a bit surprised when I first heard the Livramento links because when you look at Newcastle's team, even though they played 5 left backs at Gateshead on Saturday, they still need a left back. They're desperate for a left back because for how good Dan Burn has been there last season, and Matt Targett obviously signed in the summer before that. I don't think they're the sort of the long-term options, and I think Dan Burn next season would probably struggle at left back given what Newcastle need, because there was a lot of times last season where teams sat behind the ball against Newcastle at St James's Park. That's only going to get worse next season, and one of the biggest letdowns on the attack was from Dan Burn's side because he hasn't got that quality to deliver a ball in the box or to take on a player, and that's not his fault because he is not an out-and-out left back. He is a central defender playing left back, so he has his limitations. I think he's brilliant, but he has his limitations in them games when Newcastle need to push forward. So that's why I think we need a left back. But I spoke to someone at the club about signing Livramento, and the way it was explained was actually makes sense. So Livramento in Dan Ashworth's eyes is a player that is a future England international. I'd probably tend to agree with that, having watched him, in his first sort of 20 games at Southampton before that ACL injury. Thought he was brilliant. He played a game at St James's Park. I think it was 2 each. Saint-Maximin scored, and then I think James Ward-Prowse scored a late penalty. I thought Livramento was excellent in that game. Really caught my eye that day. So say viewed as a future in international. So getting him in now would be a huge coup because of that potential. So I asked the club, I say, well, why would you go for a right back when there's obviously limitations at left back? And they said, well, actually what would happen is Livramento would be seen as a right back, and they've got Kieran Trippier who can go over a left back. Obviously, Kieran Trippier has played a left back at major tournaments, played there at England, against England, and played there for England, obviously the Euros. I think he played there a little bit of the World Cup as well. So I can see the logic behind wanting to sign Livramento because he's potential. But having said that, I think it will be a waste to move your best right back over a left back. But with that as well, Kieran Trippier is 34 next year, so they need to think about long-term replacements. Livramento has a good season at Southampton now. It's probably going to attract interest again this summer. So I think to see that as a deal, if they can't get done, would be really big for them because he's going to attract interest from big clubs at some points down the line. So if they were to get him now, there is ways where they could move players across to bring Livramento in. And yeah, I can see the logic in signing him. Whether he signs, I'm not too sure. It all depends on what the budget allows after this Saint-Maximin sale. The club have been very open in saying how strict the budget is, but I'm sure over the next couple of weeks we'll find out more as to how the sale of Allan Saint-Maximin and the arrival of Harvey Barnes impacts the transfer budget, and if there is room to go and sign 1 or 2 more players.
No, interesting. He's a hell of a player. We've talked about him on the channel before. We even did a little bit of an instant reaction when it was first.
We got overexcited, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. But to be fair, it did feel like a Tonali thing, like it was going to be really close, which is why we did it. I have to say, 620 in the chat. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Brilliant numbers. If you haven't already and you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe. That is set as a target. If you're new to the chat tonight, 500 likes. We've got 620 plus in the chat. Let's make it happen. Let's get to 600. Why not? But 500 is the target. And thank you for coming and joining us. Now, there was a reminder earlier on in the tweets, not Livramento. Where did that come from? I don't know what's going on with Livramento there, but Livramento was not the reminder there. The reminder was, and it was tweeted out from the Loaded account, that there's a members draw. So whilst everyone is here, For all the members that are tuned in tonight, the members draw is active, and of course, we've got our own summer series, not the American one, our own loaded summer series where we're putting out membership draws to win. Chris,
it's a
give us the numbers.
It's a £75 gift voucher, which will enable you obviously to get the brand new shirts, whether it be the away kit or even the home kit.
Superb. And the spinny wheels out. Daz is on the button as always.
It wasn't spinning, so I said, "What's wrong here?" But now it's spinning. So, let's. Are you ready to go?
Always.
£75 gift voucher for the Newcastle Club shop. Best of luck to everyone. 155 in the draw.
Go for it.
There we
I
go.
hope it's me.
Could be you.
I can sign ASM back.
Victoria Shepherd, congratulations! And
Hey.
I know that it's not actually Victoria.
It's David,
Shepherd.
isn't it? It's
David Shepherd, because David signed up on his daughter's account. So yes, congratulations, David Shepherd. And if you remember back, we had at the early days of Loaded, we had David on the show, and he's come back on a Loaded Mag in UFC as well. So congratulations, David. That voucher will get you in contact with Chris and get that sent out to you. So well done.
Still supports the channel. You see him liking retweets and all the rest of it with Loaded. So he's still heavily active with supporting the channel. So great to see that he's won the prize. Well deserved.
Especially since he's been here from the very start as well with a few others of the regular members. It's nice to see.
Yeah.
Brilliant stuff. Chris, there was a question that you saw for Jordan that you wanted to throw his way. Go for it.
It made me laugh, mate. I thought Jordan's going to love this question. It was from Ian Toon Trader, and the question was, Jordan. Question for Jordan: would you buy Liam's autograph?
Brilliant. That was a great one.
That's a great question.
I would buy it, but does Liam have to be reading the book, or can someone else do it for him?
No, that's Liam.
Yeah, Ben Jacobs is going to narrate it.
Oh, I'd listen to Ben. Liam, I'm not too sure. Unless you give us a free copy, I think. I couldn't pay for that.
Hey, that's a great question. Good spot there. That's for sure. There's a couple of other. This is one that we didn't quite get to when Liam was on, but I want to get your thoughts on this. And a lot of Newcastle fans have had an opinion on this tonight when it eventually broke. Not Newcastle related as such, but this one here, Fabrizio Romano broke it just before we came on air. And, it's that Jordan Henderson's agreed to his move to Saudi. Now, I want to get your thoughts on this, Jordan, just because, both Jordan Henderson and Liverpool and their fans have been very, very vocal around the Saudi influence and the Saudi influence with Newcastle as such. But yet, Jordan Henderson's now agreed to a deal to go to Saudi, and their legend, Steven Gerrard, who's manager over there, has brought him over there, and Liverpool are going to get a transfer fee for him. So it's kind of like, it's a very interesting situation for me looking at this. But what do you make of that potential deal going through and all the kind of comments that have been coming through from Liverpool fans for months now on the back of our Saudi involvement?
Yeah, so I'll have to be careful what I say here, because look, it isn't just Liverpool fans that have been making a noise, but obviously there's been Sunderland fans as well who made a big noise about Newcastle United's takeover. Now I do find it quite ironic how a player they've lauded obviously for being a Sunderland-born player, his achievements at Liverpool. Sunderland have lots amount of times claimed Jordan Henderson's success as their own. So I think there'll be a lot of quiet voices on our side tonight. But in terms of the transfer itself, I think it's a statement signing for Saudi Arabia to go there and sign Liverpool's captain. I know he's only 33, but I suspect he still would have been a part of Jurgen Klopp's plans next season. but by the sounds of it, it's a financial decision for Jordan Henderson. Reading the reports, obviously I don't know anything about this deal at all, but it looks like that he's been offered treble his wages. I think I read somewhere around £300,000 a week. So for Jordan Henderson to go and earn that for the next 2 years of his career, you can understand that from a financial point of view. But I know there'll be a lot of people who debate whether or not that is the right move. So yeah, that's all I'm going to say on that.
Very diplomatic, Jordan.
Thank you. I hope I didn't
that was more than fair. Yeah, great points. Wow. Richie, I think your chats with the Weirsiders are going to be very, very quiet tonight because you've got bragging rights. You've got the opportunity to put the finger at them and go, hold on a second, Jordan Henderson, come on. Because I bet they've been very vocal of the Saudi stuff with you. What do you make of all of that?
To be fair, they haven't. I don't know if it's because they've been a bit sheepish about it, really, because obviously they've given a lot over the last couple of years since the takeover and stuff like that. But I don't really think they can say much about it. I don't know. It's an interesting one. Like if he wants to go, I think the most thing that was more intriguing for me was how obviously this has been in the press last few days as well about how obviously when he was going over to Qatar, they had all the. They weren't allowed to wear the rainbow armbands and all this sort of stuff. Obviously, the LGBTQ rights and stuff like that. And then he's now turned his back on all those sort of stuff because obviously that's been part and parcel of the takeover and stuff like that as well because of the human rights in Saudi as well. And he's just literally turned around and went, fuck it. Do you know what I mean? Do you know what I mean? So then give me this treble me wages. I know that Jordan mentioned there 300k. I think someone on Talk Sport was saying it was actually closer to 700k a week, but I don't know whether that's true or not.
I've seen that.
Do you know what I mean? So it's amazing where your morals can go, sort of thing. When you say one thing 1 week, then obviously as soon as you lie in your back pocket yourself and they talk about sport washing, that's technically sport washing at its finest, really, if you think about it.
Fair points. Jordan, another little snippet before we come to some questions and begin to wrap up. Jamal Lewis apparently is of interest of Watford. And there's also obviously some news. Craig Hope put out today about Callum Watts going to join Wigan on loan. And also mentions Jamal Lewis to Watford on loan. What have you heard with regards to that? And do you think it's the right time to be moving on Jamal Lewis at this stage, or would you be considering keeping him for another season? As what Liam mentioned about keeping a squad of players together because of fighting on all fronts. What do you make of the Jamal Lewis situation?
So yeah, Eddie Howe was asked about Jamal Lewis in the final week of last season, and he was asked about his future, and he spoke about Jamal Lewis having an unclear future. So even though he has started the last 2 pre-season games and has went to America, I still think they will try and find a solution for Jamal Lewis, because I think for the good of his career, and even if he is to have a long-term career at Newcastle, there's no benefit to him doing what he did last season, and that's just picking up a couple of injuries. And I think he played 4 games last season, started once. It's no benefit for his career, especially for a player that has picked up a lot of injuries, because obviously when Eddie Howe was first appointed, I think Jamal Lewis started, I think it was 4 Howe's opening 6 games, looked to be getting himself up to speed again after a really frustrating time under Steve Bruce. And then that hamstring injury comes at Liverpool, and then he needs surgery on the hamstring injury, and it almost gave Eddie Howe sort of the perfect excuse to leave him out of the 25-man squad. During that season, Eddie Howe said that Jamal Lewis will get a chance to impress in pre-season. And then obviously last pre-season, he was ruled out for the whole of pre-season because of a calf issue, I think it was. So then he's playing backtrack, and unfortunately he hasn't recovered because the likes of Dan Burn and your Matt Torrix, etc., and even Paul Dummett is probably ahead of Jamal Lewis in the pecking order. So I think for the good of his career, I think he needs to go out and at least play. While that's a permanent transfer or a loan, I'm still probably inclined to loan him out for a year, see if he can get fit, and then come back. But I just don't see how Jamal Lewis has a long-term future at Newcastle now. Because ideally, within the next 3 transfer windows, Newcastle are probably going to go and sign a left back. Where does Jamal Lewis fit in after that? I just think he's had horrible luck with injuries and needs to move elsewhere. I say, well, that's on loan or permanent. We'll have to wait and see. Watford's an interesting link. A chance for the player to move back home, because I think Jamal Lewis, I'm right in saying, is Luton born, which is obviously close to Watford, the big rivals down there. So he might take that as a big opportunity to get a bit of home comfort, try and get his career back on track, and then reassess his future next season or next summer. And then obviously I've seen Cal Watts flash up on the screen there. No surprise to see him go. He's in the final year of his contract. So by the sounds of it, will be loaned to Wigan Athletic and then signed permanently at the end of his contract next year. Do you think,
Liam? Do you think as
Liam?
Sorry, Jordan. Sorry. That's terrible. That's terrible. Sorry. I do wait for someone called Liam, so that is part of me. Jordan. Apologies. I was going to crack a joke then, but it's probably not worth it now. But now I was just going to say, do you think Harvey Barnes is being brought in to challenge Jamal Lewis for that left wing position? Why is he playing left wing? And then did you see the chat? Well, I'm sure you saw it because you were there. Did you see? Me and Pete were discussing this. Did you see the chance against Gateshead when the ball just got cut across and he just hit it?
Oh,
and
yeah.
It was just like, oh mate, that summed the career up. That one moment.
He's just a player so low on confidence. Like you think about mentally for him, I do sympathise with him because mentally he's had a really tough couple of years. Yeah, he signed from Norwich for £15 million and was at the time. I remember being quite excited about the signing because I don't know how old he is now. I think he signed when he was 20, 21 from Norwich. Obviously had a really good season in the Premier League, although Norwich went down in a canter. Thought he was on the bright spots, and when he came in, when I first seen him, he's really athletic, got forward well. But unfortunately, his body's just sort of broken down at the key times in his Newcastle career. And I just don't see a way back from him. It's good that he's getting minutes in pre-season because he needs it. He hasn't played regularly at all in the last couple of years. I think the most game time he's had is Northern Ireland when he's had a call up then. But you see it in spells last season when he played Sheffield Wednesday in the FA Cup, one of the worst players on the pitch, and he even had a really bad time against Al Hilal in the mid-season friendly as well.
Yeah,
I do sympathise with him because I think without knowing the ins and outs, I think, as I say, mentally he probably would have struggled. So I just think he needs to go away and build his career again, and then just see where he is in the future. I've always rated him as a player. I think he's very athletic. I think he's good going forward. Although he's had his criticism in the last two preseason friendlies, I think he's done okay on the left. Obviously, final product not at all there, but I think he's tried to implement the high press, which I think's been quite good. I think he's pressed quite high, quite well against Rangers yesterday.
Yeah.
But then went at left back and then looked like an absolute bomb scare again. So I don't be too harsh on the lad because I do sympathise with him. I just think he needs to go and build his career elsewhere. And I say, whether that's a loan, reassess his future in the summer, or Newcastle just write him off this summer, we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah. Great description, bomb scare. It's not to be disrespectful, but you're right. It was very noticeable, the difference in performance and confidence levels when he went to left back in comparison to playing in that left attacking midfield. And to be fair, Chris, you mentioned I'm really glad you brought it up, Jordan, because Chris, you mentioned this on away days last season. You referred to Jamal Lewis as that sliding doors moment at Liverpool, at Anfield. And he was actually playing really well that day. Yeah. He had a really good run of form. And then he picked up the hamstring injury. He was a big outlet for us.
Eddie Howe liked him. You could tell he liked him. Yeah.
He played him. And he was a massive outlet in that game. And if I'm right in thinking we were winning at the time, Shelby scored at Anfield to put us 1-0 up.
Yes.
And
that's when we lost 3-1, wasn't it?
Yeah. That was the goal where I think they equalised when Hayden was down with the head injury,
holding his head, and he didn't know it was a head injury.
Yeah, it was like there was a lot of factors that was our downfall, but we weren't the same team once he picked up his hamstring injury, and that was when we were winning and on top. And I think you referred to it in the away days last season. I always remember that because you're absolutely right. It was very much a sliding doors moment for Jamal Lewis, and he never quite got that back. And I agree with you, Jordan. From your perspective, I do think it's now time for him to move on. Loan with a view to buy. I think Chris, you might have mentioned when we were chatting, if he has a good loan, it could maybe raise the transfer fee, as I think you referred to, and I think that could potentially be a really good point. But
didn't he get kicked in the head as well at one stage in a Brighton game as well? Jamal Lewis. He's just it's everything. It's been a disaster for him. He's like Sim de Jong and his lungs that didn't work out either. Like so much promise, but there's loads more examples.
He just gets flung onto the pile, Daz, with the list of all the other players gone by. But look, I didn't want to hit the 2-hour mark. So if we do a couple of or a few questions, just to round off the show really nicely,
sure.
And then we can start to wrap up.
I've done my best with the chat. The chat is so busy tonight. I've got till about 9 o'clock on the chat. So I'm 20 minutes behind. But let me see. There was one here. I'll ask the question and then I'll find it who asked it. But it was around the fee for ASM that we'd be receiving, because there were reports of between 25 to 40. So what's your understanding, Jordan, around the fee that we may receive for ASM?
Great question.
Yeah, so from what I've heard, it's £30 million up front and then £5 million add-ons, which for me is a great deal. Yeah,
it is.
To be honest,
and the £5 million, Jordan, isn't that meant to be? I'm sure I've read somewhere the £5 million is a case of like he will hit that £5 million. It's not like if we win a league or he will hit the £5 million.
Well, as long as he plays, Chris. If it's on appearance, he might not.
Well. Hopefully, it's like a Chris Wood additional fee. Like I think he had to pay 3 games in order for him to trigger the 15 million or whatever it was fee. Hopefully, it's something similar to that. He can make that. As Richie's quite rightly said, if it's 15 or 20 games, maybe we'll have a different conversation there.
Okay, next question. I never found who asked the other question, but I suppose Tom asked the question, and we a lot of people have chatted about it in the chat tonight. But the whole situation with Joe Linton and trying to get to the States and the whole visa thing. So we're all assuming it's linked to the drink driving conviction that has had some sort of hold up. Have you heard anything else, Jordan, around that?
I mean, I haven't heard the exact reason, but you put 2 and 2 together and you look at the incident that happened earlier this year as to why he's had problems with his visa. But I do the club are anticipating that getting sorted, and they do think he will link up with the squad separately. When that is, I don't know. But they are keen to get Joe Linton out there, and they do believe that he will arrive at some point.
There were some pockets tonight of in the fan base saying that he's not going to be allowed into America with regards to the visa, which would be, I'm not saying that's gospel. I hope he does, but that would be a huge blow to his preseason and ours.
Yeah,
if he didn't make it, for sure.
When Eddie Howe was speaking yesterday, he seemed quite confident that Joe Linton would arrive at some point. So my information on Joe Linton is based on what Eddie Howe has said. So look, people might know US laws better than what I do, and they may, say it in the laws that Joe Linton can't travel. But certainly from the football club's point of view, they were quite hopeful that he would link up separately. So we'll just have to wait and see on that one.
It's very different to Joey Barton, for example, who way back when it stumped a cigar. Was it a cigar in one of the youth players' eyes? And he had obviously his jail term for the fight, I believe, in Liverpool. Like, it's a very different situation. Like, he was never getting into the US on the back of that. But surely with the drink drive, it's not going to prevent him. I don't know.
Jinky asked the question. We talked about Caldara earlier, but how about Dubravka? Will Dubravka be staying?
Yeah, Dubravka, it's an interesting one. I think that'll probably come down to him. Eddie Howe was asked about Dubravka yesterday, and he was asked if he was part of his plans, and he said definitely. But Eddie Howe also said that about Allan Saint-Maximin 3 days ago as well. So I suspect if an offer was to come in for Dubravka, they would probably consider it, because they've got Karius there as backup, but then I don't think they would like to go into a season with Mark Gillespie as the number 3, because he is literally just a trainee goalkeeper, a cheerleader around the squad, if you like.
Works in the club shop. Well.
has the best job in the world, Mark Gillespie. So I don't think they'd quite fancy putting him as the choice. But they may, if Dubravka wants to go, then I don't think they would stand in the way. They could keep it the same as last season, because I think more likely at the minute it's Caldara the one that's going to leave, and they could see Loris Karius as a number 3 again, because he was quite happy in that position last season, because he was going back to Italy every other week to go and see his pregnant partner. So I suspect there will be movement in the goalkeeping department. I think it will be Darlow. I think Dubravka is currently up for debate. I think at this moment, I think he'll stay. With that as well, I do think there is a possibility that he may go. It depends if the player pushes for a move. Newcastle didn't want to lose him last summer when he went to Manchester United, but then respected the player's wishes to pursue a move, and obviously came sort of crawling back 6 months later. So Dubravka might look at next season. If Dubravka's guaranteed number 2 spot next season, he might be quite happy, because he's going to end up playing in the cup games at least. So just have to wait and see. I don't know how the keep order is going to work. I think I like Karius. I would like to see him promoted to a number 2, but I don't know the situation around his personal life, because, as I say, last season he was going to Italy when Newcastle were playing on Saturdays and Sundays. That may continue. So, a bit of a non-answer. I think I went about
That's okay, Jordan. That's okay, because what's coming up now is, Chris, you'll be happy to hear this, the 60-second quickfire round. So, one-word answer, Jordan. Are you ready? Are you ready?
Right.
Here we go. Who will be the captain, Jordan, for the start of next season?
Kieran Trippier. Kieran Trippier.
Cool. Next question. Any news on Kieran Tierney from Arsenal?
No.
Adam asked, Jordan, in your opinion, Barnes or ASM, who's better?
I can't answer that in one word. I think Allan Saint-Maximin's day is Harvey Barnes over a consistent period is better.
Will Harvey Barnes start?
When? Yes, I don't know.
Anything on Chiesa?
No.
4-3-3 or 4-2-3-1?
4-3-3.
4-3-3. Where is it? Would you be happy if we finished 4th and got to a cup final this season? Same as last.
Absolutely.
That's it. Quick fire session.
That was the most stressful 60 seconds of my life, I think. I wasn't expecting that. You didn't preempt us on that one.
Imagine leaving in 60 seconds.
Jordan. Chris, I think you just brought a little bit of breaking news, not Newcastle related, but an ex-Newcastle player. Oh, was it? Someone else put it in the chat.
Yeah. Oh no, I'll say no. Yeah. I was agreeing. Yeah, it was me who wrote it. Mitrovic. Sky Sports News have just broken that Mitrovic is going to join Fulham's tour, but has told relatives he will never play for the club again. So he's spitting his dummy out. And just separately on what we were talking about earlier, Fab Romano's just tweeted, there will be a moment where we probably have to talk about it, but it's not now in relation to Jordan Henderson joining Al Ettifaq. So that, well, to me, I don't know about you boys, but that to me sounds like he doesn't really want to talk about it and he's not very happy about it. But that's open to interpretation, I'm sure. But yeah,
I think you must have heard my rant 20 minutes ago. That's why.
Brilliant.
So probably.
Right, go on, Pete.
No, I was going to say, like that's I think that's us done in terms of the questions, in terms of the huge talking points. Anything you want to hit at, Daz, before we start to wrap up?
No, I'll maybe just do the sponsors, because I know them off by heart now. Thanks, Richie. On my holidays. But yeah, shout out to HO Bathroom Design Co. I was better when I was on holidays saying this. The Northeast largest suppliers of Velcro and Botch bathroomware. Team Valley Gateshead, over 20 years established, ran by the family. Get down to the showroom on 11th Avenue, Team Valley Estate, Gateshead. And you know already, the beautiful bathrooms there are on offer. Also, shout out to the radiatorshed.com, as we put Chris, who's gone, and Jordan in jail there. But yet, you know, the fabulous radiators there are available via Russ there. And also, Russ has updated the van. And I know I have the old pictures, Russ, but I'm going to show them anyway. I have them here somewhere. Here they are. Here's the loaded van. It's getting a reboot, and it's looking well, the loaded van. So if you spot that, take a picture and send it to us. We'd love to see it. Also, just so that's a shout out to our sponsors, but also just we have it on Twitter as well. But our fantasy football league is open, and there's at least, I'd say, nearly 150, 200 teams in it already. But here's the code to join. You'll also see it on the link on Twitter. But it's W90FQ1, and that code will get you into the loaded league just for fun, just a bit of crack. That's back, and will we tell people what's happening tomorrow, Pete?
Yeah, why not? I'm not put my team into the fantasy football yet, because I was waiting until right to the end. And you say it's just for crack. I want to win. Jordan, are you going to put a team in? Are you going to come and join us?
So is any prizes for coming last? Because what I usually do with fantasy football is I concentrate on it for the first couple of weeks and then completely forget about it for the rest of the season. Happens every year.
Just like the rest of us.
But I could put a team in and try and commit to it, but I'm pretty sure. I'll tell you what, leave that up there a second. I'll take a picture on my phone, yeah. Please,
go for it. Send it to Liam and Dom as well. And get them
I'll tag in the tweet as well, so you'll see the link and get you straight in. But so what is happening tomorrow is we're back again, 7:30. Pete, talk us through this one. Is someone coming to gloat, I wonder?
He's coming to gloat. We did leave it open, but we when the news broke about ASM, like he was straight on it, and fair play to him. But he's gonna be very happy talking about this tomorrow night. And Graham Bailey, 90 minutes. Graham Bailey's coming back on to talk all things Newcastle. In particular, Allan Saint-Maximin. He might talk a little bit about Harvey Barnes, but he's going to be very excited to discuss how that deal has materialized. And there'll be a little bit of gloating, there'll be a little bit of finger pointing, but look, it's always a good show. Graham Bailey will come and join us tomorrow night. So come and join us and see what's cracking. I'm sure in the next 24 hours, as we've seen in the last 24, 48 hours, it could well have developed and changed, and there could be new information. So I'm looking forward to that one.
ASM might stay yet.
That happened. I don't know. He might well cancel.
Thanks to both Liam and Jordan for joining us tonight. Great to have you back, Jordan. We haven't chatted to you for a while, but great to have you back on with us. We'll be back tomorrow with more. So Jordan, we have a little thing that we do as we end the show, and we get people to say, "How do you like that?" Do you want to say it this week? If you do, you get a T-shirt from Chris.
How would you like that?
You got your T-shirt already. That's right.
drink it like me, then tell me if you like that, like that.